On this episode of the Path to Success podcast, we sit down with my good friend, Julia Wang. Julia is the founder and CEO of NextGen Real Estate. She's also a real estate investor, and she's married to a very successful tech entrepreneur. Julia is very proud of her career in real estate, but then also she's a massive social media influencer as well. In 2015, she made the decision to pursue social media influencing to contribute to the growth and success of her real estate business. And today we discover how it's massively paid off. Julia is also a mom to 3 young children. She's got an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old, and we all saw the journey on Instagram, a brand new 7-month-old at home. If you're a working mom and you want to learn how to balance personal life, business, and being a mom, or if you're an experienced real estate agent or a potential home buyer or home seller, you're going to learn a lot about Julia Wang and her specific path to success. Tune in. Well, hey, today in the podcast studio, we have a good friend of mine. I'm actually good friends with her husband as well.
Yes.
But today we brought in the real boss with all the real tea and the good stories on the Path to Success podcast. I'm excited to have you in studio, Julia Wang.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and this is actually my first real podcast. So I'm excited.
You started your business during COVID, and so everybody was doing virtual podcasts and virtual interviews, and so now we want to bring back the human factor and shake the hand.
Honestly, I don't do well virtual, which is surprising because I'm on social media, but Zoom and all of that doesn't work for me. I like being face to face and feeling that energy.
Oh, that's such a
life.
model thing to say. She's like, I much prefer to be in person so people know I'm not a catfish. Well, excellent. Well, I know you well enough to know you're not just an Instagram and social media influencer. You're also an amazing CEO and self-made entrepreneur. But I don't want to go off of what I know. I want to ask you, who is Julia Wang?
Who is Julia Wang? I mean, first of all, I'm a mom first, a wife and a mom first. So I've been married for 12 years now, been together for 15 years. We have 3 kids, a 9-year-old, 8-year-old, 7-month-old. So yeah, life is really busy. And I'm also the CEO of NextGen Real Estate. We now have 183 agents as of today. We have 4 kind of full-time employees. And to be honest, I never thought that it would be that big. And we could talk about that later. But and then, after that, I'm kind of like a social media influencer on the side. I say that's my side hustle. And thankfully, they've all kind of tied together in a really good way, and it helps each other, right? My influencing helps my real estate and vice versa.
Yeah, no, it's very easy to see that as one of your social media followers, that the more people that know you and that trust you and respect and admire you, that's going to just feed into you growing your business. And so I think that it's a great strategy in order for you to continue that growth. So let's talk about maybe like your beginnings, right? And can you give us a little bit of insight without us like coming to tears into your upbringing and childhood, where you're from, and then maybe what inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, they really don't have any idea of what my childhood was like. So I grew up with a single mom. My mom had me when she was, 22, very young, never finished college. And, we struggled a lot. My mom, she never graduated college. Obviously, she came here as an immigrant from Korea. So she kind of had, very basic jobs, right? And sometimes she'd have to have, 1 to 2 to 3 jobs to just kind of support us. And I still remember, as a little kid, I would always have these big dreams because I would see my mom and I'd be like, you know what, Mom, one day I'm going to be living in a mansion. I'm going to have these mink coats. And my mom, I think she just didn't want me to get hurt. And she would always tell me like, hey, those are the rich people. We're not the rich people. This is us, right? And, growing up, I grew up in Seattle, Washington, not in the best neighborhood at all. And I remember, even in the middle of the night, I remember hearing gunshots like outside of our neighborhood. And in my school, I was the only Asian person, right?
Wow.
So I think ever since a young age, I had to grow up and really learn how to kind of be a chameleon and how to fit in with other people and people who were not like myself. And so, fast forward, we kind of, my parents actually got remarried when I was 13 years old. Had my little sister. We moved down to Dallas, Texas, and, life was good. I mean, we lived in a very suburb type neighborhood, but I kind of rebelled a lot, so I was a pretty horrible teenager.
Oh, no.
I was probably the worst teenager if my daughter is even close to who I am, I'd be terrified. But starting at 13, I think just a lot of the past traumas of coming from a broken family. I started hanging out with the wrong crowd, started doing drugs at a very, very young age, started running away from home. So the first EDC in Austin, I actually went to that when I was like 12, 13 years old. And now I see it like it's this big thing. But I remember when it was really just this small rave. And then, but the thing is, no matter how bad I was, I always got good grades because I was just competitive.
Yeah.
So I never went to school. I would probably show up at school maybe like 2 days out of the week, right? But I graduated, top 10%. And obviously when you do that, you get to go to UT. But it was like a lot of drama because I actually had to go to court when I was in my senior year because they didn't want to allow me to graduate. And I remember standing in front of the judge and he was telling me, hey, you were only at school like 20, 30% of the school year. But I was like, yeah, but I graduated top 10%. So why does that matter? So I ended up at UT and I thought I was going to be an attorney. So that's the route I went. I got a degree in English, all of that. And then I started dating an attorney and I saw all the hours they worked and how stressed they were and the little money that they made in the beginning. And I was like, oh, hell no. Like, I'm not doing this. And then just kind of floated around, met Jason.
At UT?
So we met at a bar.
Oh,
We met
okay.
at 6th Street, and he started his own business. He was having his like poker edge business at the time, and I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. Again, I didn't grow up in that kind of life, and all of my friends, they kind of went the traditional route of working at Dell or working at these large corporations. So, at that time, I was working at Dell. I was doing marketing, and it was so depressing to me. I would just go to the office and, corporate life, sometimes you work with people who are just not the brightest.
Yep.
And I was like, every day I would tell Jason, I was like, I want to quit. Like, I'm so miserable. I don't want to do this anymore. And he was just like, just quit. Start your own thing, So I eventually quit and I started doing marketing consulting at home. And then it was Jason really that just kept on planting that seed. He was like, hey, I really think you should get your real estate license. I was like, no, like, I don't know if I want to do so my dad was actually a real estate broker.
Oh, excellent.
And
in Austin.
In Dallas.
Oh, in
Dallas.
Dallas.
It was actually always his dream for me to get into real estate, which is so funny now that I'm in real estate because I would always be like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, it just seems so weird and boring. But he encouraged me to do it. And kind of the rest is history. Now I'm here.
Well, good. Man, that was a great story. And I feel like I have known you for a couple years, but I didn't know the past. I don't think you speak openly about, this being raised by a single mom and her having you at such a young age and kind of overcoming adversity and evolving into the person that you are. And, obviously immigrant family. I mean, it's an amazing story. And, I'm sure you're very proud about,
Well, I
everything
think
that you're doing.
everyone, I'm sure you have an amazing story. I think any successful entrepreneur, we had to have hit rock bottom a couple of times to be where we are today, to be as resilient as we are today.
Absolutely. Resilience is on the wall out there in the lobby. That's one of our company core values. So my mom actually had me when she was 16 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Hispanic mom. My dad was 10 years older, and so he didn't go to jail, but I'm pretty sure that's not legal.
Yeah.
But they were separated whenever I was very young, and so similar story to you growing up in A-Leaf in a very underprivileged community.
Oh, you grew up in A-Leaf?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Okay, now I have a newfound respect for you.
Well, it's good. So everybody that doesn't grow up like with that Harvard education and Silver Spoon and Kincaid education and Duchenne, we kind of like respect one another, right?
Yeah, because we actually are self-made, and
Absolutely.
it's not that I have anything against people who lived in who grew up very privileged. Obviously, our kids
Yeah.
are now living this life, right? Our kids will never
Yeah,
know what
yeah.
it's like to suffer. But, I think if I didn't grow up, or if you didn't grow up the way you did, we wouldn't have that grit, and we wouldn't have that drive and that work ethic, right? Because to me, I started working at 13 because that was the only way that I would be able to get a cell phone or have a car, because I would have to pay for my own stuff.
Absolutely.
And a lot of kids, they'll never realize that. And I think that's what kind of gave us a leg up. It either breaks you or it helps you, right?
Absolutely. Well, I know in my case, it certainly helped me. And growing up with nothing, I wasn't really afraid of losing anything, right? And to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be very risk tolerant. You have to be a go-getter. You can't wait for something to come to you. And fortunately, over the last 13 years of being an entrepreneur, it's just compounded from, an idea and a whole lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So it's exciting to see, where you're at only 2.5, 3 years in.
Yeah.
When you say, wow, 183 agents, I don't even want to ask you what kind of revenue y'all generate. But you kind of made me feel a little bit bad when you came into the office and you were like, wow, this is really nice. How many employees do you have? And I said 37, and you go, I have 183. But no, that's super exciting. So I want to ask you a very important question, and hopefully it doesn't rub some of your agents the wrong way. But what motivated you to go out on your own to start your own brokerage? Because I think that was a pivotal moment, not only in your professional career, but also in your social media influencing.
Yeah, so it was 2020, and 2020, as you guys know, was a very weird time.
Yep.
It was actually my worst year in real estate, and I was just not happy. And I think a lot of it was the brokerage that I was with at the time. They almost became too corporate. There were a lot of rules that we had to follow. I was constantly getting in trouble for my social media. They were telling me I was too extreme. They wanted that cookie cutter.
The corporate image.
Yeah, the corporate, you
Yeah.
have your little name tag, you bake cookies at the open house. And I'm like, that's not who I am, right? And so it got to the point where I was like, I'm so miserable. I either am going to quit real estate. And I told my husband this. I was like, I'm either going to quit real estate. And I was really thinking about quitting real estate. I was like, do I do pharmaceutical sales? Like, what am I going to do next? But it got to that point where I was just so unhappy. And finally, I was like, you know what? I just need to leave this brokerage. So this is actually a story that not a lot of people know. I actually reached out to a well-known brokerage after that. It was, the brand new, shiny luxury brokerage at the time.
Oh, I think I know who it is.
And they rejected me.
Oh!
They rejected me. They said, so one of the things was during this time in 2020, I was actually auditioning I was one of the finalists to be one of the cast members for Selling Sunset.
Yeah.
So I was auditioning for that at the time, and I told this brokerage that, like, hey, just to let you know. And they're like, oh, no, like, we don't want any of that at our brokerage. But I knew it was for other reasons. I think they thought I was just a little too controversial with my social media. And now I'm like, don't you guys feel stupid?
Yeah.
Everything that I built, you could have had under you if you had just said yes, right? But, it was the greatest blessing. And I think looking back now, hindsight, rejection, I mean, that can be the biggest blessing, once you get rejected. And after that, my pride was hurt a little bit, right? I'm like, wait, did they actually reject me? Because my numbers, in 2020 weren't good, but before that, it was really good. And so I really had no other choice but to start a brokerage. So I got everything lined up and in a day, all my licenses. And I told a couple of friends, hey, I'm starting NextGen if you want to join me. So it was about 3 girlfriends. And then little by little, we just started getting agents interested once I started announcing that I started a brokerage. And I had absolutely no idea that it was going to be where it is today. And I think that's what made it so successful, is because I didn't go in thinking, okay, I'm going to build this big brokerage and have all these agents. And like, that was not my mindset at all. My mindset was like, hey, I just want the freedom to do what I do without anyone telling me what to do. And I want to keep, as much of my commission as possible. You can join me if you want. And that was my mentality. And that, no matter how big we get, I always want to stay true to that. I always want to remember why I started that brokerage and never forget that.
No, that's an amazing story. And so you talk about Jason a couple of times. It sounds like he kind of knows what he's talking about around a business, right? So he encouraged you to get into real estate, number one, and then he encouraged you to help start your brokerage. And so what does Jason do? And then parlay that into what significance a life partner plays in somebody's success.
Yeah, definitely. So my husband is a very successful tech entrepreneur. If you've met Jason, he's probably one of the smartest people you'll ever meet. Very quiet, very humble. He started his first business actually after his ACL surgery. He was in bed. During that time, they were giving people Oxy. So he was probably high on Oxy and he wanted to build a software platform for online poker because online poker was big at the time. So he did that when he was 21. It became pretty successful. He eventually sold that to Zynga in San Francisco.
Nice.
And then he built another company, which was on, I don't like human genetics, DNA sequencing, something like that. And another company acquired him. That's what brought us to Houston. And then from there, now he has GoCo, which is like the HR software platforms company. But, he's had a lot of experience when it comes to starting a business. He's seen what works and what doesn't, and that's been so invaluable to me when starting NextGen Real Estate. And I always say he is our true MVP because without him, NextGen Real Estate would not be here. He's the one that helped me with operations in the back, helped me how to set everything up because I didn't know how to do that. And to be honest, my mind doesn't work that way. He's very operational. I'm very creative. And I think that's also important to have in a partner, to have that balance because if we were both the same, it would never work out. And, with Jason, he's not only is he my best friend, but he's my mentor. And I think it's very important that you're with a partner that you respect genuinely. And I know that, he is smarter than me, you know, and when it comes to that side of stuff. So when I have a problem, I'll go to him and it's again, I get free advice every day. So that's great for me, right? And I think, he is a huge part of why NextGen is where it is today. Even though he has his own company that he's kind of running. And this year he was finally like, Julia, like, I am so busy with my own company. Like, I really want to help you, but we need to hire someone. So, I kind of put it out there that I was going to find a director of operations this year. And we got a really good one, Jamie Fallon. She's been absolutely amazing. And, I realized, and I was humble enough to admit that I'm not able to take us to that next level with just myself, and I needed help. And so now I have help and it's been amazing.
That's great. Yeah, I know it takes a tremendous amount of humility to admit that, right?
Yeah.
But you're the marketer, you're the face, right? You don't need to be processing payroll and putting people on performance improvement plans. Yeah.
I had little Excel spreadsheets. I was like trying to send wires. I was like, and Jason's like, what are you doing?
That's hilarious. So I actually had a different but similar story. So I met my ex-wife when I was, 23, 24 years old, got engaged within 8 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, got married, and she's a very successful petroleum engineer, and she had that, I guess, financial security that allowed me to take a tremendous amount of risks with my business.
That's great, yeah.
So I started my business about 3 months before I got married, and she believed in me, you know, and gave me the confidence to walk away from a 6-figure corporate job. Even during times where I felt like throwing in the towel whenever, oil crashed from $120 a barrel down to 60 back in 2014, 15. She said, no, I believe in you. You're going to make it happen. And so, it's funny because a lot of people look at my business, and you're a very, very different story, but they look at my business and they're like, wow, man, that guy made it. But, it took, 10 years for us to get to where we're at today, right? And a lot of people think that success kind of happens overnight.
It does,
And because you're such a public figure, it really did seem like that, right? But, it probably took me 6 years to make my first $1 million. And then once you hit that number, then it kind of compounds and snowballs because you've got that momentum, you've got the processes, the systems, the accountability. Now you can invest in the people like the director of operations and marketing and automation tools and things of that nature. So thank you for sharing your story. So I know Jason, and I know that you are like his life's pride and joy in addition to y'all's 3 children. He's so proud of you. He brags about you. He loves being the arm candy to all of your events. And so how do you balance being a wife, being a mom, being an entrepreneur, and being a social influencer? Is there a hierarchy? Does one sometimes fail when another one is excelling? Talk me into that.
I think I'm still trying to figure it out, if you want me to be honest.
Okay.
You know, the last 2 years, as you know, when you first start a business, I mean, you have to be 100% committed or it's not going to happen. It's not going to work. Most businesses fail. That's the reality. And so I feel like in 2021, 2022, I felt so unbalanced because I was just consumed with work. And I felt really bad. I almost felt like I wasn't being a good wife and I wasn't being a good mom because, you know, NextGen Real Estate was taking 100% of my time. And, you know, thankfully I had a husband who understood that and he really stepped up. He really stepped up to be there for the kids while I was, you know, stressed out trying to figure things out. And now that, you know, I have a strong foundation, you know, and I've kind of built that system now and everything's kind of running efficiently on its own like a well-oiled machine. I can now have some more time with my family. And so this year, that was my intention where I just, you know, I want to have that perfect balance of 50-50, right? 50% of the time with my family, 50% of the time both on real estate and social media. Because success is great, but, you know, family, you know, the older we get, you know this, you know, there's nothing more important than family and having that quality time because that's something you can never, ever get back. And no amount of money can ever make your kids young again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I speak from personal experience that it's really those first 5 years that are the most formidable into forming, you know, who they become as adults, right? So your kids are 9, 7, and 7 months. I think I remember
9,
that.
8, and 7
9,
months.
8, and 7 months. Mine are 10, 8, and 7 years. And
Okay.
so we knocked them out
Yeah.
a lot quicker. But again, you know, that stress that it put on our family, having 3 children under 4 years old. I had a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a
Oh my
newborn
gosh, yeah.
with a working mom that was traveling globally for her position in oil and gas. You know, that ultimately, you know, pulled us apart, right? I was focusing on my business. I was ignoring a lot of the struggles and challenges that I was facing in my marriage, and coupled with the stress of being a parent, you know, unfortunately in 2019, we decided to throw in the towel, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's amazing to see that you're being very proactive about, hey, this could potentially be a bottleneck and a challenge. Let me make sure that I'm communicating with my husband, right?
Yeah.
That way we can put in the safeguards to protect not only our children, but our, you know, sanity and love for one another as well. So thank you for sharing that story. So I think the big reason why you guys have 183 agents now is you probably have a good compensation plan. Yes, okay. You don't need to go into it, but and then I think your competitive advantage is your digital marketing strategy, right? And you know, we all know that that's a great resource to utilize in order to get, you know, potential clients, whether they're buyers or sellers, to work with experienced agents. And so I guess my question for you is what piece of advice would you give an early career agent that maybe is with the wrong broker, or maybe they're starting to question if they're at the right firm?
Well, number one, always listen to your gut, always listen to your intuition. If your eyes are wandering and you're thinking, hey, this is probably not the brokerage for me, it's not. And there are many good, you know, there's so many great brokerages out there that are really good when it comes to brand new agents. You know, help training them. They have all these crazy training programs that you go through. But a lot of the times, once you are done with that, it's what's next, right? And when it comes to branding, marketing, I feel like Texas, Houston were very, very, very behind. I mean, they have these social media coaches teaching them, but then you follow these social media people and they only have like 100 followers. And it's like, why would I be listening to you when you don't even have your own following, right? So to me, it's, you know, when it comes to anything social media, I'm the one that personally teaches that to the brokerage. And I actually, you know, give them my secrets on what works and what doesn't, because the algorithm is always changing. And whether it's, you know, Instagram or TikTok, I'm constantly studying studying the algorithm. And a lot of people don't realize that social media is a job. It is a job that every day I wake up and I'm like, I have to post something. So I will say since 2015, which is when I decided, hey, I'm going to be a social media influencer, I decided that. I was really studying a lot of the fashion bloggers at the time, because there wasn't, no real estate agent was posting on social media. So I was studying a lot of these fashion bloggers and seeing what they do, and I was trying to tweak it and make it into real estate. But I have posted every single day since 2015.
Wow. Yeah. Even the days that you had your child and everything, and you're like recovering?
Yeah. And I told my husband, I was like, I'm going to take a break after Atlas. No, never happened.
Oh my gosh.
Because to me, it's that consistency. And that's with anything in life, it's consistency. Anyone can be like, I want a big social media. And I get agents all the time that come up to me. They're like, how did you get your following? I want a following like that. And I was like, post every single day for 30 days.
Yep.
Most people can't even do that, right? Yeah. And it's like, and that's the thing is you really have, you have to be disciplined.
Yeah.
It's a job.
Absolutely. So I'm not on your level. I don't have, 500,000 followers, but for a single guy in Houston, 20K followers, probably 50K on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't know LinkedIn. So
yeah.
Have to learn that
well,
from
my
you.
business is the business of LinkedIn. But I know the importance of posting, and there's going to be some people that follow you, or at least in my case, that followed me, and they're like, "Oh, this shit's annoying," right?
Oh yeah.
And so you'll get some unfollows, but the 99% or 98% that stick around really develop a relationship with your persona, and they know all about you. And like even when we were walking in to the office today, coming from the parking garage. A young lady smiled and waved at you and said, "Oh, hey," and you just assumed this is one of my followers, right? That I didn't know, and it was our internal HR manager, so she knew you were coming into the office. But I'm sure you deal with that all the time, where people feel like they know you, right?
Yeah, and that's the goal, right?
Yeah,
that is the goal. I mean, even with you, I feel like we haven't really hung out that much in real life and face to face, but I feel like I know you just from your online persona, right? And I want people to feel comfortable coming up to me and talking to me, especially because at the end of the day, it's a business for me, right? So I always try to cater to the females, because at the end of the I know that the wife is the decision maker. So if the females like me, right, that's all that matters. I'm not trying to get any man's attention. I'm trying to get the wife's attention. And so that's why I post kid stuff. That's why I post fashion and beauty. And I have people coming up to me. They're like, "Oh my gosh, Julia Wang," and I'm like, and I don't want to be rude, but I'm like, do I know you? But now it's, the fact that they come up to me and they have that, they feel comfortable doing that, lets me know that I'm doing my job.
Absolutely, and you're not fake. I mean, you're posting in real life videos of the kids, and it's not a rented G-Wagon, it's not a rented Ferrari, right? This is your real life because of the financial independence that your brand has created, right? So I want to ask maybe a tough question.
Okay.
How does being a social media influencer, like what is different about it than what maybe some people would perceive? Like, give us the deep, dark, bad of being a social media influencer.
Number one, I think, is the trolls. And no matter how strong you are, no matter how much you can say, I don't care what other people think, it does get to you when you get these mean messages and mean comments from people that don't even know you. Or maybe they do know me, and I just have no idea who they are because they're hiding behind this fake account. And I think nowadays with cyberbullying, it's a big problem. It makes it so easy for you to really genuinely hurt other people without having any accountability, right? And so that's the hardest thing, is people, judging my life, and they don't even know me, and they've never even met me in real life, and they're saying, assuming all of this stuff about me and my family and my husband, and that's been really hard. And number two, but over time, I always ask myself, what would Kim Kardashian do, right? I love Kim Kardashian.
Block 'em, sis.
I don't care what anyone says. Kim Kardashian, to me, is a very, very smart businesswoman. She's been able to she's been the most famous woman now for 10 years. She's been able to build a $1 billion empire for really not having any talent, except for, being pretty and being a good influencer. And so to her, to me, she's one of the most hated women, but she's also one of the most successful women. People love to hate her, right? But people also love her. So I always try to channel my inner Kim Kardashian. And that's what Jason tells me too. He's like, do you think Kim Kardashian cares about what someone comments on her post, right? Because she's just rolling in her millions. She doesn't care. And so I try to really channel that energy. And I think also with social media influencing, it's hard. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, you guys just go out and take pictures and take videos and do all of this. But it's like, okay, if it were that easy, why don't you go out and do it, right? It's a job. And sometimes it's the last thing I want to do, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to make this video. I don't want to get on stories. I'm not having a good day, you know, especially when you're having a really bad day or when you're really sick. It's almost like, you know that your followers are expecting you to show up and be on stories. If I don't post for one day, I literally have people messaging me, DMing me. They're like, is everything okay?
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been missing your stories. And so it's that too, right? You have to show up every single day, even when you really, really don't feel like it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think one thing that's consistent about your brand is the authenticity, right? It's not fake, it's real. The relationship that you have with your followers, like you're a pretty quick replier even to your DMs as well. And I can't even imagine, you know, if I look at the volume that I get with 20K, I can't even imagine at your level. Do you outsource that of the people that are interacting on social?
100% would never.
Okay.
And that's one thing I'm very, very OCD about. Everyone's like, I can't believe you have a social media manager writing your content for you, posting for you, answering, you know, the DMs. But then that would totally not make it me.
Absolutely.
And I think the reason why I was able to get my following is because they know it's me. And I've always been true to myself, even though people sometimes hate it, right? They're like, hey, you're being a little too controversial when it comes to this. You shouldn't be saying that, right? And now I've been a lot more careful because now I know that when it was just me as an agent, I would just talk too much and say stuff I shouldn't be saying because that's just who I am. I'm very opinionated and it's hard for me to hold things in. But now that I have 183 agents under me, I have to be a lot more careful, right? Because it's not just my livelihood; it's now their livelihood.
Let's make sure you're not becoming too corporate like the last firm that you left.
Yeah, and that's the thing that it's that fine line because now that I actually have, you know, a lot of agents under me, I can truly understand why that brokerage did what they did, right? And I get it. So it's that fine line of, okay, how do we still give everyone that freedom to be who they are, but still make it so that we still look professional and that people want to work with us?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know that it's very important for your partner to be on board with that lifestyle of constantly creating that content.
Oh, you have no idea all the tea.
Yeah, well, full transparency. So I've gone out to dinner a couple times with our mutual friend, Kelly. And, you know, she's sitting there at the restaurant and she's got the ring light and she's taking photos and she's, you know, asking me to take photos. Profusely apologetic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, this is your business, of course. And so, you know, you need to be with somebody that supports that lifestyle and that career, right? And doesn't look at it as kind of like a hindrance.
And it's so funny because I have seen so many relationships. I've seen so many people divorce and so many breakups happen once a female starts putting themselves out there because their partner can't handle it.
Interesting.
And even though their business is going up, the partner just feels very, very insecure. And I remember even when I first started social media influencing, this was back again in 2015, 2016. Jason and I would actually get in fights sometimes because he'd be like, what are you doing? Because I'd be like talking in front of the camera. He's like, you only have 1,000 followers, right? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have a big following one day. And then now he's like, okay, like I see it was worth it. And so now he supports me in every way. He's the best Instagram husband, takes the best pictures, takes the best videos because he understands that it actually translates into business, into money.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I know even, you know, I've had girls that I've asked out that have told me, no, I don't want to date you. You're too much of a public figure. You get too many DMs. You get too much engagement. And, you know, I don't even want to try to argue with that, right? Because it is a lifestyle choice, right?
It is. It's who you are. And, you know, and it's always who you're going to be, right? And that's the thing.
Absolutely.
Right?
So let's change the subject. And so I've asked you, you know, how social media influencing was maybe different than what others perceive. Let's talk about the real estate game And how has your success in real estate exceeded your expectations? You said you never even thought that
No.
you'd be 183 agents. And then right before we came on, you go, let's talk about 250. Let's talk
Yeah.
about 300, right? So how has your success in real estate exceeded your expectations?
So when I first started real estate, I remember telling my husband, hey, I'd be happy if I sold 5 houses a year. And Jason's like, no, you could do 1 house every month. I'm like, okay, I might be able to do that. But when I first stepped into the brokerage that I started at, it was actually an apartment locating brokerage. It wasn't even a regular brokerage.
Yeah.
They had this little contest on who can get the most leases. And I remember all these agents talking about how they were getting like 5 to 10 leases. I was like, how are you guys getting these leases?
Yeah.
So they showed me how to write ads on Craigslist to get clients. And this was, again, back in 2014. So I spent the next week pumping out thousands and thousands of ads. And then my first month, I closed 27 leases in real estate. And after that, I was hooked, right? And that's,
Unbelievable.
I
And
have-
so your commission off of a lease is like 1 month's rent? Or
yeah,
half
1
a
month's rent. It's
Okay.
usually like 1 month's rent. But your
Yeah.
average 1 bedroom is $1,500.
Yeah,
right?
so
in
you made 30
Houston.
grand in your first
And
year in real
after
estate.
that, I was like, oh my gosh, right? Because I've never even seen that much, like that's
Yeah.
how much I used to make a year when
Yeah.
I first graduated college.
Yeah.
So to me, I was like, okay, this is it, right?
Yeah, I might be good at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, I think any entrepreneur, we have that addictive personality where it's like an adrenaline rush. And so I got really hooked on that adrenaline rush of closing a sale, of getting deals, of making money. And then after that, like any drug, right? It kind of starts fading away and
Yeah.
you get less of that high. And so now I was like, what next, right? And so now I started NextGen. I'm like, okay, let's build the agents. And that became my adrenaline rush. And then now, honestly, it's watching my agents succeed.
Love that.
When I've had, when I've seen agents close their first $1 million listing with us and $1 million deal. And for everyone that closes their first deal with us, I actually personally give them a gift because I remember how special that was. It's a big feeling when you close. There's nothing that compares to that first $1 million sale that you do. And so I want to make that really special for our agents and acknowledge them for that. And that to me is the best feeling, just seeing our agents rise up over the years.
Yeah, so I went last weekend with my vice president of legal. We were in our executive strategy session last Friday, and she was telling me about how she was going to her parents' summer home in Boerne, Texas, in Cordillera Ranch. It's a community over there. And my plans for the July 4th week had just fallen through, so I invited myself to family July 4th. And whenever we were like, sitting by the campfire on the nights with the family, the brother-in-law, the sister, everybody, the little kids are in bed. It felt so good. But Christina Lyles and I actually shared the stories about her big, her first 6-figure invoice, her first $500,000 offer, all these things. And I felt horrible as the CEO because at her production level, right, 40 placements a year, 2 million in billings almost, she is the #1 producer in the state of Texas for direct hire recruiters. She just won that award a couple of months ago. I don't celebrate the 30K, the 40K, the 50K invoices.
Yeah.
And I feel horrible because a 30K invoice is $1 million house, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, golly, is the new benchmark I only celebrate $5 million houses? That made me feel horrible. And so I need to be very intentional as a leader to continue to invest in, knowing what's going on in her book of business and where she's getting her clients and how she's nurturing and developing those relationships. But more importantly, how can I give her the resources and infrastructure to make sure that she's supported to where she doesn't pull a Julia and go, I'm going to go start my own thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so it's very, very important for a leader to be proactively thinking, how do I protect my most valuable assets?
Yeah, and that was one of my, one of my main things is because, not only did I leave the brokerage I was at because I was getting in trouble all the time, but I was capped. I couldn't go any higher financially. So even if I started a team, it wasn't really financially beneficial for me. So it's very important that I give all of my top agents the opportunities to start a team and make it financially beneficial for them. Like more financially beneficial for them to start a team under me than for them to start their own brokerage, right? And that's the goal. So anytime I see a top producer, I'm like, hey, let's sit down and talk about kind of the next steps in your career. Because you can't sell real estate for, I mean, some people can, but God, I couldn't imagine like 40 years later showing houses.
Barbara
right?
Corcoran, yeah, you just sell $100 million commercial properties.
And
That's
I'm
what
just
you'll
like,
evolve
you know,
into.
you have to evolve always,
Yeah.
and I really want to help my agents evolve.
Well, good. So before we came on the podcast, I looked at the website and I saw you've got a $4.4 million listing, I think in Sugarland. You've got some good, 7-figure listings. But I want to ask a question that may bring a smile to your face.
Okay.
What is your most shining, proudest accomplishment in your real estate career? Was there a big achievement, a huge sale? Walk me through that whole deal.
I think definitely 100% my biggest achievement was when I sold my first $1 million listing.
Yeah.
And I still know everything about the house. It was on Terwilliger. It was in the Galleria area, and it was a builder. I was working with MC Square Architects, and they had this home listed with another big-time realtor for a very, very long time, and they couldn't get the house sold. And so I took it over, and I invested so much of my money and so much of my time. I was there every single Saturday and Sunday hosting open houses. I was, taking as many photos as I could, videos, staging it, using my own money to stage it because, they didn't want to stage it. They didn't want to use their own money. So I was like, hey, I'll just stage it for you. And once it finally sold, I mean, that, I don't think, and again, that's why I want to celebrate my agents' first $1 million listing because I remember how happy I was and how high that made me. And yeah, again, I don't think there's anything that can beat that after, and then after that, your second $1 million listing, you're like, okay. And then when it's your like 50th, you're like, oh, okay, it's just another deal, right? And I hate to say it, but, and obviously I'm still good at what I do and I still market it the same, but that feeling that you get when you sell, I mean, I remember I was like, literally jumping up and down, like screaming inside, right? And it was just like this exciting feeling, and it was just very overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a great story, and I can relate to the extent of the pride in seeing $1 million in the bank for the first time.
Yeah.
Right? And, I think growing up, it was everybody's kind of ambition to be a millionaire.
Oh, yeah.
And when I started my firm at 25 years old, the goal was to be a millionaire by 30. And I'm proud to say that I did it, right?
Yeah.
But it does kind of desensitize you to, the 5 million, the 10 million, because when is it ever enough, right? And I think that that's the mark of a great entrepreneur is we don't necessarily do it for the money. We do it for the rush, the competitive spirit, right? The thrill of the chase, but more importantly, the celebration of the close is very, very important to keep us motivated and going. So thank you for sharing that on your first $1 million deal. Do you know who lives in the house today? Is it still your buyers?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Oh, there you go. And so let's change the subject to maybe a big challenge that you had to overcome in your professional career.
Oh gosh, there was a lot. And I think that's the thing about social media and being an entrepreneur is people just see the glitz and glamour and the shiny, right, cars and all of that. But as you know, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes on behind the scenes.
I've had a few tears lately, but I'm reacting to it well.
And that's the thing that a lot of people don't see. And I've had, with any company, right, you have your downs. There was a lot of times, honestly, even with NextGen Real Estate, where I wanted to throw in the towel. And I was like, man, this is way too hard, right? This is way too much stress. Or, to me, because I have such a personal connection with my agents. When an agent leaves, I take that very, very personally, and it genuinely hurts me, right? So I had to really be able to overcome that and just not take, learn not to take it so personally, right? And I'm like, hey, maybe they just need to explore something else, kind of like a relationship. Maybe they just need to see what else is out there, and hopefully they come back, right? Because they realize that we do offer something that other brokerages can't, or that we do actually genuinely care. And I've now had 3 agents that have come back. And so, that makes me feel so much better. But yeah, the first couple of agents that left, I mean, it was like getting stabbed in the heart,
Oh.
right? And it was bad, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think it's just those hard lessons of sometimes you really need to learn to separate personal from business.
Yeah.
Because to me, I used to do, you know, it was all, you know, both of them together, right? I took it everything personally. And now I'm like, okay, you know what? It's not always about this, right?
Yeah.
You know, I have to think of it as a businesswoman rather than as a friend. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we haven't had very many people that have left our organization that we didn't want to leave the organization. But there's kind of three routes that you can take in our industry, right? Number one, you can go work for a competitor, which is, you know, probably what happened with the three that left. Or maybe it was route number two, they went and started their own firm, right? And so, you know, I've found that that's a much easier pill for me to swallow whenever someone leaves to go start their own firm, because, you know, I remember when I was a 24, 25-year-old entrepreneur and had the confidence to go out and do it on my own after only having 4 months of agency experience. I was only a recruiter for 4 months. Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm smarter than this guy. Right.
Oh, that's crazy.
And so I went and I figured it out. And then the third route that they could take in our industry is they go work in-house, right? So we're agency recruiters, and then they go work in-house. So like a corporate recruiter at a Dell or a Honeywell or a company like that, right? And I found that because of the great training, resources, infrastructure, intelligence, and intellectual capital that we aggregate here in this building, that's a great thing for us, because when they go work in-house and they need agency experience, right? They call us and then we become vendors for them, right? And so they become big allies. Another thing that I can resonate with there is, you talked about relationships, right? You know, if I'm dating a girl for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it doesn't work out. My hope is that she goes out into the community and becomes a raving fan. Right? Oh, Jeremy's amazing. He's super social. He's fun. He's smart. He's successful. And then that person becomes a steward of my personal brand, right? And so I think that's why it's always important to communicate transparently, on, you know, manage expectations, and, you know, not to sever relationships just because, you know, both parties were maybe strategically misaligned, right? And so how do you handle competition, right? Because it is a cutthroat industry.
Oh, very.
Like, how do you work with your competitors? Because at the end of the day, you probably want all of your competitors to come work for you one day, right? So how do you kind of juggle that?
To me, I have an abundance mindset, and I believe that there's more than enough business for everyone in Houston when it comes to the good real estate agents. There are a lot of bad real estate agents. So we have, 60,000 licensed agents. I mean, I would say 1% are the good ones, right? That are actively buying and selling all the time. And so I always try to maintain, you know, a mutual friendly relationship with them. I mean, you know, people that I consider my competitors, I follow them on Instagram. I'm commenting on their posts. I'm liking their photos and all of that. And I go out to lunch with some of them because I want to pick their brain. And that's, you know, genuinely what, you know, and I'm being very genuine about it. There's no kind of, you know, I don't have ulterior motives. It's really just, what are you doing? Because obviously you're doing really well. Let's learn from each other. And I think there's only a couple of people that I'm like, okay, like I just really can't, you know, because to me, I'm like, there's just no way we can have a relationship. But I'm genuinely happy for my competitors when they have success. And I think that's really important, to not be a hater. And, you know, everyone's doing their own thing. Some people might not be doing social media, but some people might be thriving in another way of doing real estate. And I commend that 100%. There's this one agent I know, she gets most of her business from Google ads, right? And I'm like, I know nothing about that, right? So I'm trying to learn from that. I don't even have a Google page, which is so bad. But, you know, and that's the thing. We're all doing something different. And I think it's just learning from each other and having that abundance mindset of, hey, you know, just because you're getting business, that's not taking from me.
That is so true, and I think that's so mature of you to have that that perception, because that type of abundance mindset is probably what keeps you motivated, right? Because when you lose a deal, you can stay positive and just, grind towards that next sale,
I
right?
remember when I would lose the deal, I would literally be in the bathtub crying.
Aw.
Like, I thought it was like the worst thing ever, and now I'm just like, hey, let's move on, right?
It's a numbers
It's a
game,
numbers
yeah.
game, right? It's gonna happen. Every good agent loses a client,
Yeah.
loses a deal, loses a listing. It's part of the game, and it's just, the quicker you learn to just get back up and keep moving,
Yeah.
the better off you'll be.
Well, that's fantastic. So you've already accomplished so much in your personal and professional life. But maybe give us some insight into what's next. What's in store for Julia and Jason Wang in their personal life, and for the fame, Julia Wang HTX, in business and in NextGen real estate. What are your future goals?
I think the older I get, I just crave peace and privacy.
Ooh.
And I think a lot of people think I want to, be on television and do all of these things. And I used to strive towards that, right? And I used to, constantly be working with producers to try to see if we could get like this reality show. But now it's like I really don't have the urge for that anymore. I think I'm at an age where I'm like, you know what, I'm doing well, and I have really good people in my life, and I just want to spend quality time with them. So traveling the world. I think one of my next things is I want to start doing a lot of really cool content when it comes to traveling with my family, because I think that's something like that's a very specialized thing that not a lot of people do.
Absolutely.
Traveling with kids and serving my agents, right? So being more behind the scenes rather than being the face, right? Because sometimes when you're the face and it's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of pressure. And I'm like, I want NextGen to be at a place where I don't need to be the face, where the agents are the face, right? And I'm more behind the scenes. And so that's kind of what I'm slowly working towards, and we're slowly getting there. And, with my husband, my husband, he just loves working. So, and that's the thing, my husband, his goal is never to sell the company or to, he just loves what he does every single day. He's so passionate about it. And so, I couldn't even imagine him being retired, because I just think he has so much energy and he's way too smart to not be doing anything.
Well, with the last valuation on new money in for GoCo, if he monetizes that at what he should, he might be retired sooner than later.
Yeah, then I'm like, okay, what are you gonna do? He's probably gonna work on cars.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, and I think just living a happy, fulfilled life. And I think I see a lot of successful people who don't have a happy and fulfilled life. And you're surrounded by the glitz, the glamour, you have all the money, but are you really happy? And I've realized that a lot of people aren't, and I don't want to be one of those people. Yeah,
I resonate with one of the first words that you shared when you answered that question, and you said peace, right? Because in order to create success as an entrepreneur, it is very chaotic, right? And we're choosing the chaos. We're running towards the fire. But I think there comes a point in time where you do become successful, and you think, and I don't know your finances, but what's the difference between 50 million and 500 million, right? I mean, at 50 million, you can kind of already, maybe not own your own jet, but you could fly first class everywhere you go, right? Because your lifestyle doesn't really change, maybe just generational wealth lifestyle. And so I'm in that new phase of life where I value peace, respect, and really nurturing that quality time with my children, right? And surrounding myself with people that motivate and inspire me to be a better person. And so it's funny that you're sharing a lot of the same words that our mutual friend Hoda Sana shared with me on a Memorial Park walk earlier this week, because it's been awesome to see her growth in this new phase of life where she is accepting peace, quiet, tranquility, and really becoming the best version of herself, not only professionally, but socially, emotionally, as a mom, right? And so it's awesome to hear that. So I've seen you out in the community several times at galas, fundraisers. Maybe talk to me a little bit about the importance of philanthropy and giving back in the community.
So that to me now is kind of what I want to be doing more of in this next stage of my life. Obviously, we've both been very blessed to be where we are today. And there were so many people that helped me get to where I am today. And I really don't think you're truly successful until you help other people become successful in whatever way that is. And so to me, if you have the means to help someone, you should. And I also kind of selfishly believe that the more you give, the more you receive in return. And I've been proven that over and over in my life again. And obviously galas and all of that, it's great for networking too,
Yeah.
right?
Content and networking.
It's networking, content, and who doesn't like to get dressed up in a gown, right? Who doesn't like to get dressed up in a gown and go out? But I think it's really just choosing, and I know I talk with Hoda a lot on this because I'm always like, okay, what do you think about this organization or this event? And just choosing very intentional events to attend. Because like you, I'm sure we get invited to all these things all the time. And I used to be a yes person and be like, yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, you invited me, I'll go. And then I just started getting so drained. And I now am so intentional of like, okay, if I go, is this a good organization? Is this somewhere where I'll meet the right people that I want to be around? And I have to have a very good reason to leave my house these days.
Especially with a 7-month-old.
Especially with a 7-month-old, yes. And with my 9-year-old and 8-year-old, unfortunately, you know, the first 5 years of their life, that was when I was in grind mode for real estate. So I was working every Saturday, Sunday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. My husband was watching the kids. And so I really feel like I kind of missed out on that crucial time. And so Atlas, he was definitely unplanned. I mean, I'm almost 40. I did not intend to have a baby when I'm almost 40, but it's a blessing because I kind of get to redo what I didn't do with Cameron and Jordan.
Excellent. So let's make this, since I'm a recruiter, let's make this a recruiting opportunity.
Okay.
Why should experienced agents with portable books of business come move their book to NextGen Real Estate?
I think in this new way of real estate, it really doesn't matter what brokerage you're with. People don't care about that. People care about the real estate agent. And I think for the longest time, it was all about, okay, who's a brokerage? Are they, you know, this luxury brokerage, the brand of the brokerage?
The Oppenheimer group.
And now people are caring less and less about that because I will say when I was at the luxury brokerage I was generating most of the business myself. My brokerage wasn't helping me, and yet I was still giving so much of my money to that brokerage, which doesn't financially make sense. And so instead of, you know, going off and becoming your own broker, just join NextGen Real Estate, and we will make it very, very financially beneficial for you to join. Other than that, we offer a lot of marketing tools. So we have so many templates available. We have a saying at NextGen where one person's listing is all of our listings. So we have a library of videos. I would say there's probably about 100 plus videos. Each video is usually like $250 to make around there. So imagine having that inventory available if you're wanting to build an online presence. And as a real estate agent, in the next 5 years, if you don't have an online presence, you're not going to make it. I don't care how good of a real estate agent you are. That's just the way we're headed. And I think at NextGen Real Estate, we also push people to get outside of their comfort zone. So one of the first things I have every agent who joins the brokerage to do is to create a video, a commercial. And it's a free video on the brokerage. They don't have to pay for it, but so many agents still haven't done that, right? Because it's like you really have to push them to get themselves in front of a camera and to put themselves out there. But that's what we're trying to do because we know that's how you're going to be successful in real estate in the next 5 years. Everything's moving to video.
Absolutely. You know? We're on video right now.
You know that.
Yeah. Well, good. And so thank you for giving insight into how or why the agents should go to NextGen. So how can home buyers or home sellers get a hold of you? What's the best strategy and resource?
I mean, you guys know I run my own social media, so all you need to do is hit me up in the DM and I'll answer. And I will say now, you know, of course I get a lot of my repeat clients, referrals, but most of my business now comes from social media, and I've gotten to, you know, multi-million-dollar listings, multi-million-dollar buyers from social media. And that's the thing I think most people don't realize, right? They're like, hey, you're not going to get these high-end buyers and sellers. And no, a lot of people do. And most of my I had one of my agents, she posted a TikTok video and she got 30 buyers from it.
Love it.
Could you imagine one TikTok video getting 30 buyers? I mean, do the math there of how much commission that
Absolutely.
is. So, yeah, and that's the thing,
Now they just need the inventory to buy.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, with me, and that when you're my client, I really try to develop that relationship with you. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm not going to talk to her personally. No, like I'm talking to you on, and I'm the one that calls you trying to figure out what you want, what you like. I'm there at the listing appointment. So I'm still very much hands-on.
Well, good. Well, thank you for coming to the podcast studio
course.
today. It was awesome to get to know you on a very personal level.
Yeah.
I thought that you were very vulnerable, very honest, very authentic, and I'm excited about becoming a friend of yours even deeper going forward.
Of course. Thank you for having me.